The last tournament. Dagonet, the fool, whom Gawain in his mood had made mock knight of Arthur's Table Round at Camelot, high above the yellowing woods, danced like a withered leaf before the hall, and toward him from the hall with harp in hand, and from the crown thereof a carcanet of ruby swaying to and fro the prize of Tristram in the jousts of yesterday, came Tristram, saying, "Why skip ye so, Sir Fool? For Arthur and Sir Launcelot, riding once, far down beneath a winding wall of rock, heard a child wail, a stump of oak half dead, from roots like some black coil of carven snakes, clutched at the crag, and started through mid-air, bearing an eagle's nest, and through the tree rushed ever a rainy wind, and through the wind pierced over a child's cry and crag and tree, sealing Sir Launcelot from the perilous nest, this ruby necklace thrice around her neck, and all unscarred from beak or talon, brought a maiden babe, which Arthur pitying took, then gave it to his queen to rear. The queen, but coldly acquiescing in her white arms, received, and after loved it tenderly, and named it Nestling, so forgot herself a moment and her cares, till that young life, being smitten in mid-heaven with mortal cold, passed from her, and in time the carcanet vexed her with plaintive memories of the child. So she, delivering it to Arthur, said, "Take thou the jewels of this dead innocence, and make them, an thou wilt, a tourney prize. To whom the king, peace to thine eagle-born, dead nestling, and this honor after death, following thy will. But, O my queen, I muse, why ye not wear on arm or neck or zone those diamonds that I rescued from the tarn, and Launcelot won, methought, for thee to wear. Would rather you had let them fall," she cried, "plunge and be lost, ill-fated as they were. A bitterness to me, ye look amazed, not knowing they were lost as soon as given, slid from my hands when I was leaning out above the river. That unhappy child passed in her barge, but rosier luck will go with these rich jewels, seeing that they came not from the skeleton of a brother slayer, but from the sweet body of a maiden babe. Perchance, who knows, the purest of thy knights may win them for the purest of my maids." She ended, and the cry of a great joust, with trumpet blowings, ran on all the ways, from Camelot in among the faded fields, to furthest towers, and everywhere the knights, armed for a day of glory before the king. But on the hither side of that loud morn, into the strange hall staggered, his visage ribbed from ear to ear with dog-whip wheels his nose, bridge broken, one eye out and one hand off, and one with shattered fingers dangling lame, a churl to whom indignantly the king, "My churl for whom Christ died, what evil beast hath drawn his claws athwart thy face, our fiend? Man was it who marred heaven's image in thee thus." Now, you only die for your own sins. You could be murdered for somebody else's sins, but really that's not going to pay for their sins. Then, sputtering through the hedge of splintered teeth, yet strangers to the tongue, and with blunt stump, pitch-blackened, sawing the air, said the maimed churl, he took them, and he drave them to his tower. Some hold he was a table knight of thine, 100 goodly ones. The Red Knight he, Lord, I was tending swine, and the Red Knight brake in upon me, and drave them to his tower, And when I called upon thy name as one that doest right by gentle and by churl, maimed me and mauled, and would outright have slain, save that he sware me to a message, saying, Tell thou the king and all his liars that I have founded my table round in the north, and whatsoever his own knights have sworn, my knights have sworn the counter to it, and say, My tower is full of harlots, like his court, but mine are worthier, seeing they profess to be none other than themselves, and say, My knights are all adulterers, like his own, but mine are truer, seeing they profess to be none other, and say his hour is come. The heathen are upon him, his long lance broken, and his Excalibur a straw. Then Arthur turned to Kay, the seneschal. Take thou my churl, and tend him curiously, like like a king's heir, till all his hurts be whole. The heathen, but that ever-climbing wave, hurled back again so often in empty foam, hath lain for years at rest and renegades, thieves, bandits, leavings of confusion, whom the wholesome realm is purged of otherwhere. Friends, through your manhood and your fealty, now make their last head like Satan in the north. The ancient Persians, if they had something bad to say about Satan, they would, direct their rejection towards the north. My younger knights, new made, in whom your flower waits to be solid fruit of golden deeds, move with me toward their quelling, which achieved, the loneliest ways are safe from shore to shore. But thou, Sir Lancelot, sitting in my place, and chaired tomorrow, arbitrate the field. Wherefore shouldst thou care to mingle with it, only to yield my queen her own again? Speak, Lancelot, thou art silent. Is it well? Thereto Sir Lancelot answered, It is well, yet better if the king abide, and leave me the leading of his younger knights to me. Else, for the king has willed it, it is well. Then Arthur rose, and Lancelot followed him. And while they stood without the doors, the king turned to him, saying, Is it then so well? Are mine the blame that oft I seem as he, of whom was written, A sound is in his ears, the foot that loiters bidden go, the glance that only seems half loyal to command, a manner somewhat fallen from reverence? Or have I dreamed the bearing of our knights tells of a manhood ever less and lower? Or whence the fear less this my realm, upreared by noble deeds at one with noble vows, from flat confusion and brute violences, reel back into the beast, and be no more? He spoke, and taking all his younger knights, down the slope city rode, and sharply turned north by the gate, in her high bower the queen, working a tapestry, lifted up her head, watched her lord pass, and knew not that she sighed. Then ran across her memory the strange rhyme of bygone Merlin. Where is he who knows? From the great deep to the great deep he goes. But when the morning of a tournament, by these in earnest, those in mockery called, the tournament of dead innocents, brake with a wet wind blowing, Lancelot, round whose sick head all night, like birds of prey, the words of Arthur flying shrieked, arose, and down a street way hung, with folds of pure white samite, and by fountains running wine, where children sat in white with cups of gold, moved to the lists, and there, with slow sad steps, ascending, filled his double-dragoned chair. He glanced and saw the stately galleries, dame, damsel, each through worship of their queen, white-robed in honor of the stainless child, and some with scattered jewels like a bank of maiden snow mingled with sparks of fire. He looked but once, and veiled his eyes again. The sudden trumpet sounded as in a dream, to ears but half awakened. Then one low roll of autumn thunder, and the joust began. And ever the wind blow and yellowing leaf, and gloom and gleam and shower and shorn plume went down it, sighing weirdly, as one who sits and gazes on a faded fire. When all the goodlier guests are passed away, sat their great umpire, looking o'er the list. He saw the laws that ruled the tournament, broken but spake not. Once a knight cast down before his throne of arbitration, cursed the dead babe and the follies of the king. And once the laces of a helmet cracked, and showed him like a vermin in its hole. Modred, a narrow face, anon he heard the voice that billowed round the barrier's roar, an ocean sounding welcome to one knight, but newly entered, taller than the rest, and armored all in forest green, whereon there tripped 100 tiny silver deer, and wearing but a holly spray for crest, with ever scattering berries, and on shield a spear, a harp, a bugle, Tristram late from overseas in Brittany returned, and marriage with the princess of that realm, Iseult the White, Sir Tristram of the Woods, whom Lancelot knew, had held some time with pain, his own against him, and now yearned to shake the burthen off his heart in one full shock. With Tristram even to death, his strong hands gripped and dented the gilt dragons right and left, until he groaned for wrath so many of those that wear their ladies' colours on the casques, drew from before Sir Tristram to the bounds, and there with gibes and flickering mockeries, stood while he muttered, "Craven crests, O shame! What faith have these in whom they swear to love? The glory of our round table is no more." So Tristram won, and Lancelot gave the gems, not speaking other word than, "Hast thou won? Art thou the purest brother? See, the hand wherewith thou takest this is red." To whom Tristram, half plagued by Lancelot's languorous mood, made answer, "Ay, but wherefore toss me this, like a dry bone cast to some hungry hound, lest be thy fair queen's fancy, strength of heart and might of limb, but mainly use and skill, are winners in this pastime of our king. My hand, belike the lance, hath dripped upon it. No blood of mine, I trow, but, O chief knight, right arm of Arthur in the battlefield. Great brother, thou nor I have made the world be happy in thy fair queen, as I in mine." And Tristram round the gallery made his horse caracole, then bowed his homage, bluntly saying, "Fair damsels, each to him who worships each, sole queen of beauty and of love, behold. This day my queen of beauty is not here." And most of these were mute, some angered, one murmuring, "All courtesy is dead," and one, "The glory of our round table is no more." Then fell thick rain, plume drooped, and mantle clung, and pettish cries awoke, and the wan day went glooming down in wet and weariness. But under her black brows a swarthy one laughed shrilly, crying, "Praise the patient saints! Our one white day of innocence hath passed through, somewhat draggled at the skirt. So be it. The snowdrop only, flowering through the year, would make the world as blank as wintertide. Come, let us gladden their sad eyes, our queen's and Lancelot's, at this night's solemnity, with all the kindlier colours of the field. So dame and damsel glittered at the feast, variously gay, for he that tells the tale, gay as and joyous, likened them, saying, as when an hour of cold falls on the mountain in midsummer snows, and all the purple slopes of mountain flowers pass under white, till the warm hour returns, with veer of wind, and all are flowers again. So dame and damsel cast the simple white, and glowing in all colors the live grass, rose, campion, bluebell, kingcup, poppy, glanced about the revels, and with mirth so loud, beyond all use, that half amazed the queen, and wroth at Tristram, and the lawless jousts break up their sports, then slowly to her bower parted, and in her bosom pain was lord. And little Dagonet on the morrow morn, high over all the yellowing autumn tide, danced like a withered leaf before the hall. Then Tristram sang, "Why skip ye so, Sir Fool?" Wheeled round on either heel, Dagonet replied, "Belike for lack of wiser company, our being fool and seeing too much wit makes the world rotten. Why, belike I skip, to know myself the wisest knight of all." "A fool," said Tristram, "but 'tis eating dry, to dance without a catch, a roundelay to dance too." Then he twangled on his harp, and while he twangled, like little Dagonet stood, quiet as any water-sodden log, stayed in the wandering warble of a brook, but when the twangling ended, skipped again, and being asked, "Why skipped ye not, Sir Fool?" made answer, "I had liefer 20 years skip to the broken music of my brains than any broken music thou canst make." Then Tristram, waiting for the quip to come, "Good now, what music have I broken, fool?" And little Dagonet skipping, "Arthur the King's. For when thou playest that air with Queen Iseult, thou makest broken music with thy bride, her daintier namesake down in Brittany, and so thou breakest Arthur's music too, save for that broken music in thy brains." "Sir Fool," said Tristram, "I would break thy head. Fool, I came too late. The heathen wars were over. The life had flown. We swear but by the shell. I am but a fool to reason with a fool. Come thou, art crabbed and sour, but lean me down, Sir Dagonet, one of thy long donkey's ears, and hearken if my music be not true. Free love, free field, we love, but while we may. The woods are hushed, their music is no more. The leaf is dead, the yearning passed away. New leaf, new life, the days of frost are o'er. New life, new love, to suit the newer day. New loves are sweet as those that went before. Free love, free field, we love, but while we may. Ye might have moved slow measure to my tune, not stood stock still. I made it in the woods, and heard it ring as true as tested gold. But Dagonet, with 1 foot poised in his hand, friend, did he mark that fountain yesterday, made to run wine? But this had run itself, all out like a long life to a sour end, and them that round it sat with golden cups to hand the wine to whosoever came. The 12 small damsels, white as innocence, in honor of poor Innocence the babe, who left the gems which Innocence the queen lent to the king, and Innocence the king gave for a prize, and one of those white slips handed her cup, and piped, the pretty one, "Drink, drink, Sir Fool." And thereupon I drank. Spat, pish, the cup was gold, the draught was mud. And Tristram, was it muddier than thy gibes? Is all the laughter gone dead out of thee, not marking how the knighthood mocked thee? Fool, fear God, honor the king, his one true knight, sole follower of the vows, for here be they who know thee swine enow before I came, smuttier than blasted grain. But when the king had made thee full, thy vanity so shot up, it frighted all free fool from out thy heart, which left thee less than full and less than swine. A naked ought, yet swine I hold thee still, for I have flung thee pearls and find thee swine. And little Dagonet mincing with his feet, Knight, and ye fling those rubies round my neck. In lieu of hers, I'll hold thou hast some touch of music sense. I care not for thy pearls, swine. I've wallowed, I've washed, the world is flesh and shadow. I have had my day. The dirty nurse, experience in her kind, hath fouled me, and I wallowed. Then I washed. I have had my day, and my philosophies. Well, doesn't the Bible forbid philosophy? I'm not necessarily proposing that view, I'm just saying. And thank the Lord, I am King Arthur's fool. Swine, say ye, swine, goats, donkeys, rams, and geese, trooped round a Paynim harper once, who thrummed on such a wire as musically as thou, some such fine song, but never a king's fool. And Tristram, then were swine, goats, donkeys, geese, the wiser fools, seeing thy Paynim bard had such a mastery of his mystery, that he could harp his wife up out of hell. Then Dagonet, turning on the ball of his foot, and whither harpest thou thine down, and thyself down, and two more, a helpful harper thou, that harpest downward. Dost thou know the star we call the harp of Arthur up in heaven, and Tristram a sir fool, for when our king was victor well nigh, day by day, the knights, glorifying in each new glory, set his name high on all hills, and in the signs of heaven. And Dagonet answered, Ay, and when the land was freed, and the queen false, ye set yourself to babble about him, all to show your wit, and whether he were king by courtesy, or knight, or king by right. And so went harping down the black king's highway, got so far, and grew so witty, that ye played at ducks and drakes with Arthur's vows on the great lake of fire. To who? Do you see it? Do you see the star? Nay, fool, said Tristram, not in open day. And Dagonet, nay, nor will I see it and hear. It makes a silent music up in heaven, and I and Arthur and the angels hear. And then we skip. Lo, fool, he said, ye talk, fool's treason. Is the king thy brother, fool? Then little Dagonet clapped his hands and shrilled, Ay, my brother, fool, the king of fools, conceits himself as God, that he can make figs out of thistles, silk from bristles, milk from burning spurge, honey from hornet combs, and men from beasts. Long live the king of fools. And down the city Dagonet danced away, but through the slowly mellowing avenues and solitary passes of the wood rode Tristram toward Lyonesse and the west. Before him fled the face of Queen Iseult, with ruby-circled neck, but evermore passed as a rustle or twitter in the wood, made dull his inner, keen his outer eye. For all that walked or crept or perched or flew anon the face, as when a gust hath blown, unruffling waters recollect the shape of one that in them sees himself returned. But at the slot are fumets of a deer, or even a fallen feather, vanished again. So on for all that day from lawn to lawn, through many a league long bower he rode. At length a lodge of intertwisted beechen boughs, firs crammed, and bracken roofed, the witch himself built for a summer day with Queen Iseult. Against a shower, dark in the golden grove, appearing sent his fancy back to where she lived a moon in that lodge with him, to mark her lord had passed, the Cornish king, with 6 or 7 when Tristram was away, and snatched her thence. Yet dreading worse than shame, her warrior Tristram spake not any word, but bode his hour, devising wretchedness. And now that desert lodge to Tristram looked so sweet that halting in he passed, and sank down on a drift of foliage random blown, but could not rest from musing how to smooth and sleek his marriage over to the queen. Perchance, and lone Tintagill, far from all the tonguesters of the court, she had not heard. But then what folly had sent him overseas, after she left him lonely here, a name? Was it the name of one in Brittany? Iseult, the daughter of the king. Iseult of the white hands they called her. The sweet name allured him first, and then the maid herself, who served him well with those white hands of hers, and loved him well until himself had thought he loved her also, wedded easily, but left her all as easily and returned. The black-blue Irish hair and Irish eyes had drawn him home, what marvel? Then he laid his brows upon the drifted leaf and dreamed. He seemed to pace the strand of Brittany, between Iseult of Britain and his bride, and showed them both the ruby chain, and both began to struggle for it, till his queen grasped it so hard that all her hand was red. Then cried the Breton, "Look, her hand is red. These be no rubies, this is frozen blood, and melts within her hand. Her hand is hot with ill desires, but this I gave thee, look, is all as cool and white as any flower," followed by a rush of eagle's wings, and then a whimpering of the spirit of the child, because the twain had spoiled her carcanet. He dreamed, but Arthur, with 100 spears, rode far till over the illimitable reed, and many a glancing plash and sallowy isle. The wide-winged sunset of the misty marsh glared on a huge machicolated tower that stood with open doors where out was rolled a roar of riot, as from men secure amid their marshes, ruffians at their ease, among their harlot brides, an evil song. "Lo there," said one of Arthur's youth, for there, high on a grim dead tree before the tower, a goodly brother of the Table Round, swung by the neck and on the boughs a shield, showing a shower of blood in a field noir. And there beside a horn inflamed the knights. At that dishonor done, the gilded spur to each would clash the shield and blow the horn, but Arthur waved them back. Alone he rose then at the dry harsh roar of the great horn that sent the face of all the marsh aloft. An ever upward rushing storm and cloud of shriek and plume the red knight heard, and all, even to tipmost lance and topmost helm, in blood-red armor sallying, howled to the king the teeth of hell, flay bare and gnash thee flat. Lo, art thou not that eunuch-hearted king, who fain had clipped free manhood from the world? The woman-worshipper, yea, God's curse, and I, slain was the brother of my paramour, by night of thine, and I that heard her whine and snivel, being eunuch-hearted too, swear by the scorpion worm that twists in hell, and stings itself to everlasting death, to hang whatever knight of thine I fought, and tumbled art thou king. Look to thy life. He ended, and Arthur knew. The voice, the face, well nigh, was helmet hidden, and the name went wandering somewhere, darkling in his mind. And Arthur deigned not use of word or sword, but let the drunkard, as he stretched from horse, to strike him, overbalancing his bulk, down from the causeway heavily to the swamp, fall, as the crest of some slow arching wave, heard in dead night along that table shore, drops flat, and after the great waters break, whitening for half a league, and thin themselves far over sands marbled with moon and cloud, from less and less to nothing. Thus he fell, heavy-headed. Then the knights who watched him roared and shouted and leapt down upon the fallen. There trampled out his face from being known, and sank his head in mire, and slimed themselves, nor heard the king for their own cries, but sprang through open doors and swording right and left. Men, women, on their sodden faces, hurled the tables over and the wines, and slew till all the rafters rang with woman yells, and all the pavement streamed with massacre. Then echoing yell with yell, they fired the tower, which, half that autumn night, like the live north, red pulsing, up through Elioth and Alcor, made all above it, and 100 muirs about it. As the water Moab saw, came round by the east, and out beyond them flushed the long, low dune and lazy, plunging sea. So all the ways were safe from shore to shore, but in the heart of Arthur, pain was lord.